me to repeat my diatribe from 2016. There is no Digimon game to date worse than Digimon World 4. Emphasis on Digimon game. In the grand scheme of things, it's not the worst thing ever, and not even close to some of the real garbage that has been made. But it's just the single most unpleasant to go through for the games of this franchise, since it abandons almost every single thing people liked about the preceding games, following games, and greater franchise. And I admitted up front that I had a vendetta with it due to it being one of the worst experiences I ever put myself through. And I've played Sonic 2006 and completed the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy. And it's not like the games before it were terrible. I really like the dungeon crawling of World 2. A lot of people like the monster stylization of World 1, even though considered the worst of the PS1 games. World 3 was on point with its story and limited party but insane evolution tree, but its time sinks were its irritants. The fighting games have always been a mixed bag, though all of them outside of the first one in the GBA games suck, and the card game could just be tedious to get stuff, though for someone that likes playing card games is a cinch. But none of them were as self-sabotaging, slow-paced, and badly put together as World 4 was, which exasperated every negative aspect of the prior games they should have learned from. And yet I've been told I don't know what I'm talking about, despite the fact that I have taken the time to play every Digimon game I could and that was imported. Redigitized had a translation project that covered it. I have played both MMOs for a short time. I streamed both Cyber Sleuths and Next Order for everybody, and the viewers for those know the biggest damn issue I had was the awful localization. Well, that and Next Order was a remake of World 1. I don't like World 1, nor did Next Order fix what I found wrong with World 1. I don't like open world games, okay? I get lost to them in everything in them doesn't have a purpose. I bring this up because apparently people didn't listen to my argument all the way through last time, as I feel I did justify my opinion and am, for the most part, backed up by rating scores, sales records, and general fandom reception that all pretty much agree with World 4 being the worst, unless you want to count some of the WonderSwan games, which were limited more by the software than anything else. Except with one caveat. Those that say the real worst game is Digimon World Data Squad, and yeah, Data Squad isn't exactly great, but it's not World 4 bad. Digimon Story Another Mission, imported as Digimon World Data Squad, is the only Digimon game to directly tie into any of the Digimon anime. I don't really count the Digimon Adventure PSP game, as that was just a remake of the original anime series in RPG form, and also the Brave Tamers WonderSwan games that are just a massive continuity snarl where the anime series that were made at the same time as those games more work to tie them in than the games themselves did in return. Then again, that's Toei and their normally half-assed attempts at continuity where they create something that is in conflict with an original creator's intentions. No, Data Squad, as was referenced by its original subtitle, Another Mission, was a tie-in in the form of its star in Digimon Saver's cast as its protagonist and was focused on them. And while this game does have the dubbed cast, they really phoned it in. Yeah, whoever was directing the voice actors didn't seem to have them put in any effort to the performance. I hold much the same criticism of the main series dub. Most of it delivered in a deadpan monotone or in Marcus's case an extremely whiny voice. Thus most of it is bad. I may not have liked the dub, but the cast in comparison was capable of a lot better than this, and many of them were actors that had been part of the franchise previously. Crispin Freeman, Colleen O'Shaughnessy, Brianne Siddall, Kate Higgins, and Jameson Price are among the voice cast. Brian Beacock, who had previously voiced Takato Matsuki, spent the entire series as Agumon. And of course, it would not be a Digimon dub without Stephen J. Bloom. This is a great cast, and yet the performance here does not reflect that. That helped the Band of America, big surprise, fucked over its localization royally. Despite the game being fully voiced, they failed to properly sound level the game so the characters' voices were distinguishable from the background music. It's all said to be more quiet than such BGMs, and there is no option made available which fixes that. Coupled with some severe translation failures messing up several Digimon's names, labels for common things, and even dialogue. Though again, nowhere near as bad as they would get with modern Saban's awful localization of Cross Wars, where of the many examples you could showcase, they renamed Lilithmon into Laylamon, despite her name for over a decade before having been officially stated to be the former, and changed her name with intent to avoid the connotation of Lilithmon being a succubus and thus sex demon, but instead stripped the subtlety of the reference entirely by the name changed into a phrase that directly invokes the connotation of getting laid from a succubus, which ironically then got parent watch groups complaining about the show. You fail unnecessary censorship! As I was saying, it's pretty obvious Bandai of America once again only really imported this game as a cheap cash grab tie-in to the anime's import with how little effort they put into importing it correctly. Though, as I've said before, this was in the early years of what I call the Bandai of America competence black hole, which more recently in 2018 concluded with them losing the license to Power Rangers entirely, despite their parent company owning the master license for all Super Sentai related products, which Power Rangers counts as part as. Yes, they were doing that bad of a job. But back with this game, it's surprising that it was that lackluster, since it was imported and released at the exact same time as Digimon World's Dusk and Dawn, which I have several times said are on the short list of best Digimon games, period, and as far as I can remember, they lack these problems for the most part. And I say, as far as I can remember, as I plan to review these in the future, and since I haven't played them since 2008, I likely am misremembering something. However, the bigger thing Bandai of America did to it is make the English version of the game unbearably slow to actually play. This was not a problem, or at least not as much of a problem in the Japanese version, but somehow, someway when they encoded it, it made all of the game's key actions play out much slower than they ought to, and it's literally almost everything that does that. Perform an attack command, wait until the game recognizes that command. Get into a battle, gotta wait until you load the battle system. Change areas or open a menu, gotta wait for the game to recognize something has actually happened. It's like the load screen nonsense I had with Digimon World 4. The game is not supposed to respond this slowly, and does not respond like this in the Japanese version. I have checked thanks to YouTubers who imported and filmed game footage of it. There, it's still slower than it should be for a proper pacing of it, but it's not stagnant like it is in the American version. And it's not like my PlayStation 2 is the cause of this. It runs other, more processor-demanding games just fine, and since I got a backwards-compatible PS3, I checked it there, and it still has the same problem. It's been a noted thing about the American release of this game since it launched. Most of the professional reviews of the game I looked up are like that, locking onto elements of the game that were screwed over in its import, and not a flaw in its original design, and one of several reasons why I and most of the fandom do ultimately rate it higher than World 4. As if it weren't for those importation fuck-ups, it otherwise would have been, at the very least, mediocre to play, and the story is actually kind of interesting. Hell, it outdoes World 4 in its entirety by actually having a tangible story, and you will never guess who actually wrote it. No, really, you will never guess if you've not played it before. It has issues, admittedly, but a lot of what I find at fault feels like there are things that come from Sabers itself, and not the original story of the game, which by relating to Sabers, they had to include to match with its canon. Which begins with the bridge bunnies of the series, Mickey and Megumi, using the digital dive system to deploy series protagonist Marcus Daimon and his partner Agumon into the Walter Island region of the digital world on a routine patrol. And hell, the digital world actually looks really good in this game. No joke, most of the locations look like places that would be in the digital world, as seen through many of the entries, as opposed to making them look more like platforming regions because 3D platforming. Immediately as Marcus transmits in, we're attacked by Rogue Otamamon, getting the battle tutorial system out of the way. The system acts in a combination of a turn-based combat engine with the additional inputs based on your Digimon's levels, form, combat record, and emotional levels. The emotional system I never really figured out, as at times it seemed to contradict itself. Do well in a battle and you'll get them to like you, so you'll have more battle options. Do poorly and they'll have fewer. In a certain mood and they'll prefer different attack strategies, such as being in fear or in pain makes them want to run away more. Thing is, I never grasped what emotional condition did what to gain a specific result, so it was just a complication intruding on what is a pretty standard battle system. That complication mainly coming from how it hinders the use of support skills, which become more needed as you progress through the game, most of which require a specific mindset to use properly. So if you need a support skill to win a difficult battle, if your Digimon is not in the mood, the resultant fight can become hell or even unwinnable. It wouldn't be so bad if they actually explained the emotional states clearly, but no, they didn't. And worse, item use is locked as part of support skills, so one bad mood and emergency healing can become a pipe dream if you are not careful. But there are some good things, in that the variety of attacks we're allowed to see used is pretty vast for such a system. Plus, in this game, the evolution system is very broad. While you only collect 6 Digimon in the game by its end, each of them has an entirely unique evolution tree. Unlike, say, Digimon World 3, where every partner Digimon would eventually become every single evolutionary Digimon in the game. So if you want the help of a specific Digimon in your party, such as your favorite like, say, Gallantmon, they're obtainable if you train up in the right Digimon and its related evolution, Galaxy. And each of the Savers cast members can obtain their Digimon's highest evolutions in the game as well. With the exception of Burst Mode, as Burst Mode had not been introduced in the anime while this game was in development. But due to the breadth of the Galaxy system, almost every Digimon you see in the game, you can at some point obtain as an evolution, which is another point it has on Digimon Worlds 3 and 4. A third one being how easy they are to actually obtain as well. And even better, you don't have to wait until you visit some stupid side thing like a Digilab or do an extremely difficult or New Game Plus test or side quest to start obtaining evolutions. Once you reach the criteria listed as a prerequisite for evolution, right in the battle screen, the option Digisoul Charge will appear, and you can get straight on to evolving for greater strength and even more massive damage. But I know there is one major question related to Digimon Savers that every fan of it is going to ask me. Does Masaru Marcus Daimon still punch out Digimon? Oh my, yes!
How about this? Digisoul Charge!
And thus, not even 10 minutes into the game, I obtained my favorite rookie Digimon, and appropriately he does have slightly better stats than Agumon. Because of the evolution prerequisite system, you for the most part don't even need to do anything that special to get them. Just keep grinding up your stats and use abilities part of the system. The most trouble you'll have, however, is simply the rates a lot of the later tiered evolutions have to obtaining them, requiring that specific Digimon which need to evolve land the killing blow on X number of Digimon. The Mega Forms for Saver's main cast are requiring that before you unlock them, you take down a set number of Mega level Digimon each, and they lock out all other Mega Forms until you reach that unlock condition. I mean, I understand the reason for the imposed limitation, as all of the Megaform Digimon are far more powerful than anything else you will find, but it makes the battles before you get them, where you are facing Mega level Digimon, exceedingly difficult before any of them also hit Mega. So to add in the additional complication that you need to let a specific Digimon land the killing blow, without being able to see any enemy life gauge to be able to judge how much is left to go, you're essentially gambling on who gets it. And as an additional detraction, you otherwise don't have control over evolution. You cannot swap to another form you've unlocked in the midst of battle, as it may be more adept against what you're fighting. Once you hit Digisoul Charge, it's one way. You're stuck in the form you just unlocked until the battle ends, and you manually go back into the evolution menu to swap back to what you used before, as not everything you get is stronger. Though to unlock the evolutions for Digimon bosses in the game, you usually have to defeat them once more after the relevant main story quest has concluded. These bosses thus being the strongest forms your Digimon can obtain in the game, and a few of them feel a bit overkill-y. But yeah, had they explained it and let us control the emotion system more and permitted us to select evolutions mid-battle to feel like we're a bit more in control of things and given a status bar for enemies, it would have been far more improved. As it is, it's kinda mediocre and hits frustrating at times when the system decides to fuck you. Anyways, Marcus's mission in the area is to investigate an escalating crisis of Digimon in region suddenly going feral and attacking anyone and anything in their rampancy. The only way to deal with them being to return them to being Digi-Eggs, which serves as one of the collectibles of the game. The chief suspect for the cause of all this being...
Spiromon. It's a champion Digimon.
Which is supposed to be spelled with an L because its name is Tilomon. Okay, LR romanization is something of an issue with importing Japanese series. I know this, you know this, they know this. But, one, its name is derived from a Telosaurus, a prehistoric shark. And two, there's already official translations for it, and everything else they mistranslate in this game. Ergo, precedent they should not be violating if they're supposed to be doing their goddamn job correctly. Yeah, if you didn't figure it out from my prior comments, this game is ridiculously badly translated. Oh, don't get me wrong, it is better than the amateur hour that bastardized the otherwise excellent Cyber Sleuth, but it is pretty much the same type of incompetence, to go along with all the other localization issues this game had. The worst one I will be having a rant on later, as it's something that in no way needed to be done once more because of existing precedents within the franchise. But yeah, a lot of text explaining things is entirely wrong, laden with typos, or makes you not understand what they're even talking about. For the love of, who's responsible for this? They outsourced this to Axis GL, the guys who translated Guilty Gear, Zero Time Dilemma, Blaze Blue, and Fate Extra. Actually, this is not that surprising considering the translation of Record of Algarest War was notoriously god-awful. And looking up the other games I listed alongside the greater company, Guilty Gear and Blaze Blue have been heavily slammed for how bad the English conversion was. Zero Time Dilemma specifically served up as a microcosm for how bad they are, as it had several game puzzles that literally could not be completed without an external guide because the information given within the game needed to solve them was entirely wrong. So if you followed that instead of the external guide, you'd fail every time. So, okay, I can't actually blame the scope localization issues on Bandai of America. This time, as Axis was founded in 2006, and this game released in September of 2007, so their work on this would have been during their first year as a company, and thus before they would have garnered a record for terrible translation and localizations. But I still gotta blame the Band of America QA team for dropping the ball and actually checking the goddamn work. We engaged Tylomon, and in doing so unlocked the ever-awesome GeoGreymon. He's like a regular Greymon, but after he hit the gym. And after a few rounds, we kick his ass and turn him back into an egg. As we're about to head out, though, Mickey and Megumi inform us of another Digimon in the area. But, how bad could it be? This is the opening stage of the game. It's probably just a slightly tougher boss to bring in the rest of the team. Oh crap. Well, it looks like Daemon escaped the Dark Ocean, and he does not look happy at all. And yes, this is the game responsible for giving us his horrible English rename of Creepymon, which sadly several media past this have stupidly and blindly followed despite, again, precedent set by Daemon's name remaining Daemon in the dub of Digimon Adventure 02. And the previously released already Digimon World DS, which was the first game in the franchise to include all of the Demon Lords in it. Still, wow. Guess this means that this entire game is the proper debut of the 7 great Digimon Demon Lords as central antagonists for a story, instead of them one by one just being seen and included at random in the anime. And that's something fans have for years been wanting since this common thematic first came to be shown. This has to be awesome!
Darn! It's not over yet!
Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Well, okay, it would be even worse if we just one-shot it while we had just hit champion level, but that is kind of contrived, with Yoshino then appearing and dragging the injured Marcus back to base. Elsewhere, however, a young girl named Yuma is cornered by Devimon.
Help, Renamon! Help me, brother!
Yuma?
I'm so anguished by this abduction that I've forgotten how to emote. Back at base, Marcus is chewed up by Commander Samson and Yoshino by repeating to him the organizational mandates of DATS. Which doesn't make any sense in context since he actually completed his mission only to end up ambushed by a new target. It's not like the dude defied orders and charged recklessly into battle as is expected of his archetype. Don't get me wrong, an organization like this chewing out a problem member with impulse control issues and a disinterest in formal learning, that is actually how you are supposed to address and correct such issues with them early on. Hold them accountable for their actions by beating into their head that they can't just say or do what they want if they want to be part of a group whose job it is to protect the world. Why do the makers of so many modern Japanese series not get this? But contextually, this doesn't work in the game as Marcus was following orders, and as far as I'm aware, had gotten past that character flaw of his in the show by the point in the series this game is set in, approximately around episode 24. It's just shoehorned in here as exposition on the organization for those not familiar with the main anime series. This, while a good thing narratively to supply that information, is just framed in the wrong way with regards to Marcus's conduct, as he is not deserving of the berating he is receiving in this instance. Regardless, they are sent out to deal with a problematic Bakuman in this Nyato forest. I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be Senyato, as nothing in Japanese is structurally spelled like that. And if it was Senyato, that would make this place the Thousand Nights Forest. 1,000 nights, one night. Huh. That's actually a really clever hidden reference made by this game's writer, which the translators then fucked up in their entirety. And yes, who that person's identity is important! It's still appropriate as it's infested with virus Digimon, though not so much as the forest is pretty well lit. And in there's where they'll meet their third teammate, Thomas.
Why doesn't Thomas have to listen to the commander's briefing?
Unlike you, Thomas has memorized the Digimon Treaty.
You do realize that treaty isn't the same as the procedural guidelines and regulations for an organization, right? Or are you just rules lawyering so you can bash Marcus and praise Thomas for shit? And I'll point out that Thomas is revealed to have done the exact same fucking thing as Marcus is being berated for in deploying on his own. Only with Marcus's mission before, he was assigned it solo, while this is supposed to be a three-man mission from the beginning, which means Thomas is defying regulations on the matter to go off on his own, which Marcus in no way violated as he did his job correctly. Thus, yeah, Marcus has a legitimate criticism of his teammate receiving special treatment. Have I mentioned I hate how much of the red-oni, blue-oni dynamic inherent to a lot of Japanese series is used these days? Because the people who rely on it, it's rarely anymore a both sides are right, both sides are wrong thing with how they're written, as it's supposed to be used as, but instead, almost always one or the other shows themselves to be complete jackass or alternatively imbecile, which sunders any empathy towards them. And yet, the largest character flaw is never treated as such with regards to the series' own narrative. More and more as time has moved on with the use of that trope, they've refused to fix it and insert this aspect that's required for it to work. Thus, the Marcus-Thomas dynamic grates on me in the same way the Ty-Matt hostility did, and frankly does with how they turn Matt's jackassery up to 11 in try, as it is clear the dinosaur-partnered one is always on the receiving end of the shit being thrown between them that they are not deserving of. Well, at least not to the degree they get it. And yet, they're always the one who gets the short end of the stick, while the other is praised and glorified as automatically better. Made worse in Thomas and Data Squad's case, as they actually made him to a super genius playboy philanthropist, who graduated college at 13, making him a borderline Marty Stew at that, while Marcus is just a battle savant that is endlessly insulted on the assumed grounds of reigning in his recklessness. That is actually not seen once in this game, and further not helped with how much Galmon is otherwise an asset. Matt, at the very least, was more believable with his only notable skill set being his music affinity, before, the whole stupid Adventure 02 ending idiocy. We don't talk about the ending to 02. Again, I've not seen Savers in full to know if this is justified, but it's not here. So there's an even bigger divide in that dynamic than you normally expect from it in the starting stages of this game. At best, one could think of this as the game's writer calling it out for what it is. Anyways, Senyato. Immediately to the right of the entrance is a Salamon who you'll need to revisit every so often, as by doing stuff in the game you get milestone rewards from them. Battle here also first introduces you to Lalamon, Yoshino's partner you now have, and just as a tip, her early evolutions are tied to her using guard and support abilities. The area is just a big loop, with the main feature of it being 3 guarded barriers you need to unlock by opening them in a specific sequence, but the hint of the order to do that in is translated garbage. To get them open, you need to use the red sphere in the northern corner of the farthest right side of the map, which opens the first barrier. Then the second red sphere within that gated partition, which was opened by the first red sphere, then touch the blue one to open the other main gate, which is where Thomas and his partner Galmon have holed up. Though before that, we meet the director of DATS, Yushima, outside of that gate for a morale-boosting pep talk. Yushima is also one of the optional bosses of the game, where you fight increasingly more powerful aquatic-based Digimon, which is ultimately to unlock the Jumbo Gamemon form for your evolution tree. The problem is the side quest can get ridiculously convoluted if you are not keeping track of it, as he's in every region in the game, and to regress it, you need to find him, talk to him, and if possible, beat him if he offers to battle you. But unless you overlevel like crazy, even to an extent I usually don't buff my characters to when playing RPGs, then you're not going to be able to beat him until about 2 stages after where you encountered him, which requires backtracking to him, and the later levels are very difficult to traverse. With localization originating slowness of this game, you can just waste hours just trying to go back and reach him each single time. And I mean hours at a time to each encounter with him. It's ridiculously overdone. The order for battling him is to progress through the game's first 8 stages as per normal, finding him each time. The 5th region I can't pronounce that word, island is the easiest to miss him in. Then backtrack to the Walter Islands to catch him there. Then hit him up in the 10th region, the Ice Labyrinth, then the 11th region, the Dark Area, then go back for the final brawl with him and Commander Samson Sleekmon in the Ice Labyrinth, where many of the game's extra bosses choose to congregate for rematches. Anyways, as we get the last gate open, Yoshino brings up out of nowhere a series of child disappearances, one of which we saw in the cutaway to Yuma, with DATS thinking it possibly connects to the rampancy outbreak they're currently dealing with, since the energy signal of digital gates has been detected near where the kids went MIA. Gee, maybe it would have been a good idea to tell your teammate about that before you left. Everyone's just being an asshole to Marcus today. Speaking of assholes...
What are you doing here? I don't need your help. According to my calculations, my partner and I can handle this one just fine.
Sure, harass the guy doing as ordered for breaking orders, but praise the genius that acts on his own with open contempt. Do you see why I haven't really felt the need to actually sit through this series? And where are your precious calculations now, Mr. Super Genius? What makes this more frustrating is Galmon is not only a nice Digimon, but an essential party member. The game overcompensates with its role assignments, with Galmon being the super speedy attack and support specialist, Lalamon the defensive healer, and Agumon the all-out attacker. But see, Marcus is a street brawler, or at least that's what I've been told he's been referred to in the dub, as it never came up in the episodes I limitedly watched. He knows the importance of speed from that, but of all the characters, Agumon is the absolute slowest. And while yeah, his stronger forms get weighted down by more and more armor and their size, so does Galmon's evolutions, making the extreme divide in speed stats all the more annoying. In the late end of the game, if you do not use an agility boost or support skill Galmon's mainline evolutions learn on Agumon, both Galmon and Lalamon can literally take 2 turns before Agumon gets one if they're all at the same level. And Agumon's far higher damage output? Yeah, doesn't make up for the difference very well. The Myotismon battle also introduces the type parallels, but honestly, I could not keep track of what each one was when I was originally playing the game because they were all nonsensical abbreviations for the given Digimon's monster typing. An issue that only pops up because, well, most people in the Western fandom have never heard of those classifications, while Japanese fans were more aware of them due to the original Digimon card game. In the Digimon card game, Data Squad, and the DS games, Digimon are split into 9 greater species beyond Data, Virus, and Vaccine. Nature Spirits, Deep Savers, Nightmare Soldiers, Wind Guardians, Metal Empire, Unknown, Virus Busters, Dragon's War, and Jungle Troopers. Nature Spirits battle Dragons, Nightmare Soldiers battle Virus Busters, Deep Savers battle the Machine Empire, and Jungle Troopers battle Wind Guardians, with each mutually weak to the other. Though for some reason the Jungle Troopers and Deep Savers switch their spots in the alignments in this game. And the mutually weak to the other thing was generally seen as dumb in opposition to the prior rock, paper, scissors dynamic seen in the more basic data typing or Pokemon's comparable damage tables. And because they don't explain how that weakness tree works in this game's translation, it took me some time in online research to figure out that typing thing, as I'd forgotten it because it's been a decade since I played the DS games. As all they give you are the abbreviations which are worthless to actually understanding what counters what. I mean, you figure it out eventually on your own for the obvious ones, fight demons with angels, battle insects with birds. But how the hell were you supposed to figure machines and marine life hated each other? And the only thing that would justify the nature spirits, which make up most of the bestial or beastman tribes hating dragons so much, is the recurring red oni blue oni thematic the series tends to repeat with their protagonists. Otherwise, it's pretty damn inconsistent. Well, okay, we have Bancho Leomon having a grudge with Darkdramon, but to me it still makes no goddamn sense. We kick Myotismon's ass back to Odaiba, with the one who supplied that information being a new character, and one Thomas has met before. This is Tsukasa Kagura. Villain. He's the villain. And I'm not just saying that so I can abuse the Honore Decado meme later.
So was Kagura Thomas a senior at Stockholm Royal University of Science?
Yeah, I checked. That's a real place. Apparently that's where they discovered Stockholm Syndrome. They were lucky to escape.
I was his senior, but I'm no match for Thomas.
Yes, heap more praise on the guy that's an asshole. And right after this, insult Marcus for asking a simple question about what they're discussing when he is showing interest in doing his fucking job correctly. Essentially, Kagura is here because he's researching the digital world's dark area, a collective term for a warped section of the world which has become more active as of late, and seems to be causing the Rampancy outbreak, alongside causing the creation of the Galaxy Evolution Tree System. Yeah, they actually explain in story why the Digimon that canonically only have one linear evolutionary line in this game can change into pretty much anything. Essentially, the emissions from the dark area are causing interference which, storyline-wise, affect the Digimon's emotional state and motive experience to influence the evolution and branch it off from its normal paths, massively opening up the brackets with this new data superseding and conflicting, so it needs to find another stable pattern, which matches up with the variant evolutions. It's astounding as I think this is the only Digimon game ever that has actually bothered to take the time and think about the ramifications of a massive branching evolution tree like this that Digimon so often are shown to have, and what actually might cause it. Actual thought went to crafting this story. I mean, yeah, I've been beating over the head the unneeded inter-character animosity, but that's just me in general disliking the concept of using a character as a butt monkey and some of my other pet peeves with regards to storytelling, and I don't think the translation issues help that. But if you give it a chance, this game actually is pretty intelligent in the handling of its plot points. Kinda shows the talent of its head writer in a way. But as I keep saying, I'm saving that reveal for later. Trust me, if you've been following me for years, you will like the surprise. Good. And now we wait.